So, I left Barnum and his family at the bathhouse, and the tunnels and the trenchers were trying to get them cleaned up. And their guide led them to a small cave that was obviously above the hot spring river, and the floor was really warm. And normally it wouldn't be pleasant to go to sleep on a bare stone floor, but in this case it was just fabulous because it was like just the right temperature, and you know, the whole family just spaced out on the floor. We're gone. They don't know how long it was before, you know, until they woke up, but they woke up, and once they started shuffling around and talking and stuff, then they were led to another room, and there was food, and a lot of it was grazer food, but a lot of it was the kind of food you could buy in Capitol. And so they ate, and you know, things were looking better. And eventually a group of grazers came in and got them, and there were a couple of men, and there was an Barnum, and there was a group of people that were standing around in a room, and they hear kind of a raspy voice, "Bring him in, bring him in, bring him in. I want to see this Barnum and his family. Yes, bring him in." And they see this lizard, and he's, you know, a draconian. He has this huge head, and his shoulders are about as wide as his head. He's, you know, obviously a pretty big buff dude, you know, scales and all, but he has on like woman's glasses that are studded with like jewels, and he's wearing a flowered bathrobe. And he takes one look at Barnum's son and is like, "Oh, it is so good to meet you, even though you look funny because you're half your normal height and you don't have a beard. But it is so good to see you. It's been so long since we sat down and had those good old chats about economic policy, and you're such a bleeding heart liberal. My goodness, you make me cry. You're so funny." But and this little boy is just looking at him like, and I said earlier that Barnum's sons were Keb and Lore, I think. I kind of misstated that. His name's John at this point, not Keb, but later he'll be called Keb. So this boy is, and the whole family are just like, why is this man talking to, well, he's like, actually he's 8-year-old boy like this. This is kind of odd. And it goes on and on and on, as if he knows this boy as a grown man, and it's just weird. And finally he kind of straightens up and says, "Let me introduce myself to you. I am the bank." And the family is just kind of, "You are the bank." And Barnum, you know, remembers what his teacher taught him in elementary school about draconians and being very polite and respectful to them. But he finally kind of pulls up the courage to ask, you know, well, in Plainville, where I'm from, which is kind of a country town, the bank is a building with money in it. And he's the draconian. Yes, the bank is a building with money in it. Actually, no, the bank is people who have money. I am the person who has the money, therefore I am the bank. I lend money, therefore I am the bank. And they're like, "Oh." And while we're on the subject, we need to go over your account. What, do you remember your account number? Barnum thinks about it, and it's kind of in the back of his mind. And the draconian goes over to like this wall that's full of ledgers. He goes, "I think it's 860 or 861, somewhere in there." And he climbs a ladder, and he pulls a ledger off, and he opens it up and flips, "No, it's not this one." And he puts that ledger back, and he pulls another ledger out. And Barnum goes, "No, it's 822-166. "Oh, thank you, my boy, thank you." And he goes and pulls the ledger 822 off and flips to page 160. Right as rice, 822. "So you had a fruit stand that you sold to pay off certain..." My goodness, you were in a lot of debt for someone who just has a fruit stand. Oh, I had a store. That's right, you had us in Plainsville. I've been in that store years ago. In the year Ivan 26, I think. Yeah, it was a good sized store, definitely not a fruit stand. And I'm gonna have to recalculate this. And he sits down and asks Barnum questions. Oh, how big was the original store and when was it built? It was built in Ricas 12, the original store was, and then there were add-ons that were added in Ivan 16, and then there have been stables built in Lear 1 and Lear 2, and we had to dig in a new well recently, and the Draconian sits down and, so you live upstairs? Yes, and we have extra rooms that we rent out. Oh, so okay. So the depreciation on that, and he worked. So I actually owe you money. Well, anyways, the Draconian has John or Keb put into his old clothes that he showed up in, and hands him like 25 cents. Actually, a feather is a small coin. That a down feather is kind of round, and it's enough to buy, you know, a piece of pie or, you know, some. It's $1 or $2. You know, it's a small coin. He gives that to John and says, "Now, tomorrow, you're to go to the candy shop and stay there at about noon. Stay there for quite a while. You, and has you know, gives Barnum a pretty good sized purse, and Barnum's like, so those Anatnom guys won't be breaking my legs or selling my family? Oh, no, I sent them to collect from you when I thought you owed me something. Why would they collect from you when you don't owe me anything? That's a relief. You're a brave man coming down here and speaking to your creditor directly instead of just like running away from your financial problems. I like men like you." And he shakes his hand. So he personally like leads the Barnum family to an elevator, and he's like, "Well, just hop on the elevator and pull the rope, and you'll end up in the palace and Capitol." Oh, and will you bring these 2 wheelbarrows up with you when you go? And so, with 2 good-sized wheelbarrow loads full of jewels and gems and gold, Barnum can't pull the rope up, and so and the elevator only works, it's a security elevator, it only works one direction. They can't go back down. And so Barnum could pull his family in the 2 wheelbarrows about that far. So what he did is he had his wife and his 2 boys get off the elevator, and he pulled the 2 wheelbarrows up, and then when the next elevator came up, then his wife and sons pulled themselves up in a second batch. But I guess King Lear borrowed 2 wheelbarrows full of money, probably for the Ascension ceremony that was